Yo, what's up? Ready to start the week on the opening line. Corey and Benny. What's good with you, Benny? How was the weekend?
The weekend was awesome, man. I want to start off by giving a big shout out to Mad Lab, our MMA guy over here. He was on fire this weekend, man. I made a lot of money watching the fights. I try to make when I bet, usually like the first couple fights of the UFC card are on ESPN Plus, which I have. So I try to make enough money in the first couple fights so that I could justify paying the $50 or $60 for the pay-per-view. I honestly, I think I made about $1,000 watching UFC, sitting on my couch and just hanging out on Saturday. Mad Lab was basically everything that he liked hit. So I must have hit 5 or 6 like $200 bets that paid $150, $200 each. So shout out to Mad Lab for putting some money in my pocket this weekend.
Also, condolences to Mad Lab too. Saw on Twitter this morning where his grandmother passed away. So condolences to the homie. Speaking of giving in-house shout outs, Scott Bonder. Yeah. Yeah. When you can, like, you know me, it'll never hit. Home run props.
Mm-hmm.
Yo, Lindor. What night was it? Lindor.
Probably Friday, I think.
Was it Lindor? It was Lindor, Acuna, and somebody else. You know what I'm saying? Sun goes crazy. You know what I'm saying?
There's good money to be made on those. Like yesterday, I had Jordan Luplow and Carlos Santana were both plus 400 or better to homer. Both of them went yard yesterday. So, you know, it was a very. I'm not gonna lie, Corey. I had a very good weekend gambling. I probably made almost close to 2 G's this weekend just gambling, and that's a pretty good weekend. I'm good with that.
No, that's definitely a good weekend, and I don't blame you on that one at all. So shout out to everybody that's getting it done. All right, speaking of gambling, you know, I woke up this morning going through my email, and I saw where my Apple ESPN Plus go through. I got like billing error email from Apple. So I'm like, why would I get a billing error email from Apple? Well, it's because what my bank does is when they see a charge that they don't recognize, they should recognize it, they block the account. You know what I'm saying? They shut the account down. So that charge is to the National Fantasy Football Championship. Whenever I buy NFFC, they shut me down because they're like, what is this? And I'm like, mind your business. Just don't worry about it. So I got some draft data that we can go over and talk about today. Obviously, we got to get to some of the big news and big stories that took place over the weekend in training camps. And I want you to I did a draft. I went hot. I did a draft. You know what I'm saying? Fab League, going to play out NFFC. You know what I'm saying? Put a couple bucks on it. So I want to talk about my team and discuss that. And then we'll get to some Major League Baseball trade deadline. And then we'll get ready to wrap it up because it's a lot going on, Benny. Starting to get the mojo is coming back. We're starting to get back in the groove. You know what I'm saying? Let's start right at the top with AJ Green. Torn tendons in his ankle, saying 6 to 8 weeks. I'm also hearing don't be surprised if a trip to the IR is coming. As soon as they gave this dude his money, Benny, his body started breaking down.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we talked about AJ Green and Tyler Boyd and where they were going in drafts a couple weeks ago. And I said I'd rather pay the 5th or 6th round price that Tyler Boyd is bringing right now than the 3rd round price that AJ Green is bringing right now. And everybody who listened and did that is in a pretty good spot right now because Tyler Boyd showed last year when AJ Green out that he could be their number 1 receiver. I do think this hurts the Bengals offense overall. I mean, it's obviously a lot easier to defend them when you take arguably their best offensive weapon off the field. It sucks for AJ Green. I always liked AJ Green. I mean, he's a really good player. Yeah,
kid. He's a Carolina dude.
Yeah, you know, it sucks for him, but I mean, it is what it is. You know, here's my big thing for anybody who's looking to draft AJ Green right now is
don't.
Yeah, I mean, basically, we talk about this all the time. It's hard enough to stay healthy for 16 games of an NFL season when you come into the season fully healthy, fully prepared, 100%. When you're coming in already off a major injury, I mean, even when he comes back in 6 to 8 weeks, it's going to take him a couple weeks to get going. So, you know, Let's even say it's on the low end, and he comes back in 6 weeks, and he's there like maybe week 2 of the season.
It's October.
Yeah, by the time he really gets himself up to speed, half the season's done. So to me, there's just really no reason to do this. It boosts up Tyler Boyd for me a little bit. Again, I'm not going to go crazy and start taking Tyler Boyd in the 3rd round right now. But I mean, the 5th, 6th round Tyler Boyd, you're not going to get Tyler Boyd at a better discount than you've been getting him for the last month or so. He's going to start moving up in drafts now because of this, and probably rightfully so.
I got a Tyler Boyd question coming up for you. As far as the situation with A.J. Green goes, what I'll say is this. I didn't like him. What I don't like is a lot of the lazy narrative out there on fantasy Twitter. Tyler Boyd was better when A.J. Green was on the field. That's bullshit.
He wasn't actually, yeah.
Best receiver on that team last year. And people would talk about, you look at the numbers. Y'all not taking into the fact that the last 5 games of the year, the Bengals quarterback was Jeff Driscoll, not Andy Dalton.
Mm-hmm.
So the games when they both played and had the same quarterback, Boyd was outproducing him. Jalen Ramsey told us 2 years ago, A.J. Green is washed up. Yep. Now, he caught hands for that. You know what I'm saying? A.J. Green whipped his ass for that. But the bottom line is, it looks like, Benny, Jalen Smith may have been right on that one.
Yeah, I mean, again, I wasn't reaching to take A.J. Green and put him on my teams anyway because, I was worried about the injury stuff. And this is why I was worried about the injury stuff. I mean, the guy got hurt in preseason and practice in, the first week. And, it is what it is. It seems like it's every year with A.J. Green. He's coming down with one of these injuries. So, avoid A.J. Green. It kind of sucks for them. I want to ask you a question, though, Corey, because we've been hearing a lot about this, on fantasy Twitter in the last week or so. With A.J. Green going down and then with the Giants losing all their receivers, everyone's starting to talk about Mixon and Barkley and how they're being overdrafted because they don't have a team around them and blah, blah, blah. How do you think that these injuries are going to affect those guys? Because the Giants now have Golden Tate suspended for fertility drugs, and then you got Sterling Shepard, who's already banged up. Cincy now has A.J. Green out, so they're down one of their receivers too. And the talk on fantasy Twitter is now that these teams are one-dimensional, it's going to hurt the projections and the upside for guys like Mixon and Barkley. Are you on that boat or no?
I'm not on it with Mixon. With Mixon, I am of the thinking that Mixon will still be fine. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I think A.J. Green was on the back nine anyway. You know what I mean?
Right.
With the Giants, what worries me more is what happens when Daniel Jones takes over rather than what's going on right now. People talk about the 11-man, the stacked boxes, and Murry Hunt talk about this all the time. Good running backs like stacked boxes because you got to make one man miss. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, get to that second level. There is no second level if everybody's up there. Exactly.
Second level, it's a touchdown. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Dudes like Saquon Barkley feast on that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really worried about that. And with Mixon, I think Cincinnati, I think the whole North is going to be strong this year. I think Cincinnati got a better chance to be strong. I think Mixon to be a part of that. It's Mixon Boyd right now, and maybe they can get a healthy Tyler Eifert. If I'm not mistaken, Eifert did not start the training camp on the PUP list, which is amazing by itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Eifert is one of those guys that's kind of slipping in a lot of drafts too, where you can get him later than you've been drafting him in the last couple of years.
Undrafted.
Yeah, the biggest problem with Eifert for me.
Yeah, undrafted.
Remember a couple years ago when he had like a bunch of touchdowns and everybody kind of looked at him as a touchdown guy, which is fine and that's good.
Yeah.
But he's never been like a main target guy. You know what I mean? Like he's not a guy that's getting 7-8 targets a game where he's going to finish the year with, 90 to 100 targets and have a chance to make 70 catches. I feel like he's more of like a red zone weapon and probably like a borderline tight end one in, standard 12-team leagues or something like that. Probably more apt to be like a tight end too. Like if he's my backup tight end, I'm good with that.
Hold on 1 second, Benny, as I'm losing my mind a little bit. This is sorry. This is a podcast me and Ray Flowers did. I even learned that it was like posted or whatever, but that's not important right now. Who's the Bengals head coach?
They got rid of Marvin Lewis, right?
Didn't they get rid of Marvin Lewis? Zach Taylor.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Right. They got a new head coach this year, so that's going to be interesting. Listen, the Bengals, I don't know. They're better than the Giants, so I put it like that. Speaking of the Giants, Golden Tate. I saw Golden Tate's statement. I think Golden Tate's going to get this reversed.
If it is what he said it is, then he probably will. For those who don't know what we're talking about here, basically Golden Tate and his wife are trying to have a baby. He had to take some kind of fertility drug in order to, make that happen. The fertility drug that he took has something in it that's on the banned substance list. It's something that boosts testosterone.
Figured it out. He contacted the league himself.
Yes.
And told them.
Yeah, and that's the thing with me too. I mean, the league threw down a 4-game suspension on him, but he's going to have a chance to, to kind of go back and
They'll go through the appeals process.
Yeah, I would assume at the very least it gets lowered. Hopefully it just gets thrown away. Maybe they give him 1 game as just like a, hey, I know it was an accident, but we still got to do something.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's going to wind up with the 4 games that they handed down to him to start with. Let's say it that way.
Exactly. And last night, in the draft I was in last night, he went in the 11th round. And I'm like, oh, my God. That's a steal right there for a player that might miss 2 games. Yeah,
well, I mean, the other thing you got to think about, too, is remember, we talked about it when they signed him, right? That we didn't think it was a very good fit because Golden Tate's main asset is being in the slot, and they already have
running in the same area. Yep.
Yeah, they already had Shepard in the slot. But, I mean, if Shepard's going to be missing games, that means that Golden Tate is going to be working primarily and pretty much all the time out of the slot, which is where you really wanted him to begin with. So if that's the case, I mean, yeah, there's definitely some upside. Listen, Golden Tate as a 6th-round pick, I want nothing to do with.
Yeah.
Golden Tate in the 11th round, though, there's value there.
Value there, 100%. Shepard, that's a story to watch this summer. As long as Ingram stays healthy, he should have a big year. He's starting to move into the 4th round of drafts.
Still a little high for me, but I get it. I get why he's moving up. It makes sense that he should be moving up with, the Tate news and the Shepard news and all the stuff that's going on there.
He is going off the board. And in the 2 drafts I saw this weekend, Benny, he's going off the board as tight end 4. He's leapfrogged Hunter Henry and O.J. Howard.
Which again, I don't think is wrong. I mean, I kind of had him ahead of those guys with the exception of maybe Henry. To me, tight end 4 and tight end 5 were Henry and Ingram. I would probably put Ingram ahead right now with all the stuff that's going on there. And, I also saw another pretty cool stat this week. You want to hear a good stat, Corey?
Sure.
The Giants had 2 pass plays last year, 2 touchdown plays last year that were over 34 yards.
Oh, God, I know where this is going.
You know who threw both of those passes that went over 34 yards?
Odell Beckham.
Yep. So, I mean, when you look at this team, the guys that you want on this team, at least pass-catching wise, are your running backs, your tight ends, your slot receivers, because it's not like Eli Manning can throw. I mean, again, people think I'm cracking on Eli Manning here, but, if you can't throw the ball down the field, you're a much easier team to defend because the safeties don't have to play 15 yards deep. You can kind of stack the box. You can get everybody up there, and that's kind of the way it is. So Ingram, Tate, these are the guys that are going to have big seasons and make a lot of plays for the Giants if they're going to do anything this year because they just can't throw the ball down the field.
Michael Thomas holdout starting to affect his draft stock, starting to see him pop up in the early 2nd round, mid-2nd round, even in one case over the weekend, Benny. Is this something you're worried about long-term?
No. I think he's going to get into camp at some point because they know they need him and they know they're going to pay him anyway. And he's one of those guys. He's not one – I'm more worried about Melvin Gordon holding out than I am about Michael Thomas. I think he'll be back in there. And I got to be honest, Corey, he's never going to fall to the middle of a 2nd round of a draft I'm in as long as I have a back-end pick because I'll take him on that turn. If you can get Michael Thomas at 13 to 17 in your draft right on that 2nd turn there, 13th to 17th overall pick, you could start off with Julio Jones, Michael Thomas, or something like that.
Crazy.
I would be very happy.
People are scared off right now. I would say don't worry about him. Didn't get him in there. Also, Ezekiel Elliott. The Dallas Cowboys have already offered Ezekiel Elliott a new contract. He has reportedly not turned that contract down yet. He just has not accepted it yet. So I think something will get done with Zach and Deke. Amari Cooper is likely going to have to wait, but Amari Cooper is he's in camp and he's chilling. He's ready to go. I want to tell you about some people that are rising and dropping in draft boards, but right quick, Benny, I just happened to go over on DraftKings.com, and guess what?
Oh yeah, they got salaries up there for week 1.
Yes, week 1 salaries are up there, and the DFS community respects my man Lamar Jackson more so than the fantasy community does. Lamar Jackson has a $6,000 price tag in week 1. Lamar Jackson in drafts, Benny, in the draft I was in last night, quarterback 17.
I think part of the reason why DFS community has him ranked higher than a season-long community, I think, Corey, is that in DFS you're more in tune with the rushing yards and the effect that those rushing yards can have on your fantasy score.
Yeah.
A lot of people in season-long leagues don't give that credit because in season-long leagues, a lot of people are just looking at, well, how many yards did he throw for and how many touchdowns did he have? And that's all good and well, but we talked about, a yard rushing is not the same as a yard passing. As a matter of fact, a yard rushing is 2.5 times more important than a yard passing. So a guy who can rush for 700 or 800 yards, it's like he's throwing for an extra 2,000 yards. So you got to factor that in because that's a lot of fantasy points. Lamar Jackson is going to have a very high floor all season long because he's going to run for 50, 60 yards at a minimum every game. I mean, we talked about it last year, 70, 80-yard rushing props that this guy had for a quarterback. That's crazy. We don't even get running backs all the time that have 70, 80-yard rushing props. So, if you're adding an extra 7, 8 points to your score right there, that's big. But I wanted to mention another thing, too. You mentioned Lamar Jackson, a guy the DFS community likes, and a lot of people have already been putting on their early rosters. The guy that I think is going to wind up chalky as hell in week 1 is your boy Kyle Murray.
Yeah, and he's very cheap, too.
5,600, I think, on DraftKings, and all his receivers are like sub 5K. So if you have faith in that Kingsbury air raid offense,
go for it.
There's going to be, again, if he puts up big numbers in week 1 at that price, you can get him and still have the money to go and take some of those big-time wide receivers and running backs that you want. You take him with 1 or 2 of his pass catchers, and then, you add in some of those stud running backs. I mean, I have a feeling that's going to be a very popular roster construction for week 1 of NFL.
Interesting. Can you guess the salary on Austin Eckler?
4,200? DraftKings we're talking?
DraftKings.
Is he like 4,200?
Eckler is 5,500.
$5,500 price on Austin Eckler basically means that they're thinking Melvin Gordon's not playing.
Yep, there you go. 100% agree with you on that one. They look at it as Melvin Gordon will not be available. I'll give you a wide receiver look right quick. Sammy Watkins at 5,000. Golden Tate at 4,800. Just nothing really sticks out as, both 49er wide receivers at 4,000.
Yeah, I like Debo.
Debo and old boy from last year.
Pettis. Yeah. I will have some of them as salary savers in week 1. I will play a little bit of both of those guys probably on some of my rosters, especially at that price.
Yep. So yeah, week 1 is out. The tight ends. You got Kelsey at 7,100, Kittle at 66, Zach Ertz at 61, OJ Howard at $5,000, Evan Ingram at 4,800 should be very chalky against the Dallas Cowboys. And then you got speaking of which, and start to get back to the draft talk. Guess who got in the 20th round of a draft last night, Benny?
Give me some kind of hint here.
The tight end.
Tight end in the 20th round of a draft last night. I don't know. Who are we talking?
Greg Olson.
Okay.
Who has not retired.
No.
Everybody thinks like Greg Olson is like in the booth. He's not in the booth. He's trying to play. He's in training camp and he's saying, as long as I don't break my foot, I'll be fine. If I break my foot, then I'm not coming back.
Yeah, I was going to say
that kind of goes for either of us, Benny, for everybody. You know what I'm saying?
That's true. I mean, it's somebody, if my voice goes, then I'm not going to be on the live stream tomorrow. Otherwise, I'm planning on being here all week. I agree. the only difference is that I don't have a history of my voice going. Like, he has a history of, some injuries that could keep him out. So, I mean, listen.
Have a history of being drunk, you know what I'm saying? But,
oversleeping and missing it. Yeah, and something like that. If he's even 90% of what he had been in the past, 20th round is a steal.
No doubt.
Who are the other tight ends that are available when you get down to that point? I mean, you're talking like, taking a kid Knox from Buffalo or Will Dissly from Seattle. I mean, these are the names that are left at that point.
You know what I'm saying? So, don't roll him out there as your starter, but understand that could be a nice little play down the stretch. Odell Beckham. One thing about as we get closer to kickoff, draft boards are going to start getting tighter.
Yep.
Odell Beckham in the second round, it's not going to happen no more. You know what I'm saying?
Again, I mean, especially if you got guys like Michael Thomas falling and now Melvin Gordon falling out of the first round, like, there aren't enough very good players to take their places. So, yeah, I don't think you're going to get Beckham.
Very correct about what you said. It's very shallow this year. Once you get past the first 3 rounds, everybody has a ton of flaws. Another person that you're not going to get in the second round no more, Le'Veon Bell. You can forget about that. Le'Veon Bell has moved up to draft boards. Le'Veon Bell is the first round pick now, baby.
I usually I was looking at Le'Veon Bell ahead of Melvin Gordon. Like, I had him in some drafts. I got him in one of my drafts the other day. I think I had pick 9. And I think I took Le'Veon Bell at pick 9 there, before the turn, and then came back and took a wide receiver on the flip side of it. To me, that's always where he should have been. Him falling into the second round didn't make much sense to me. Listen, I don't know what Adam Gase is going to do. Maybe he does something stupid. But you don't go and give a guy $20 million and bring him in there to kind of be your bell cow back and not give him the ball. So if they don't give this guy the ball, as a Jets fan, I'm not going to be very happy about it.
Somebody's going to have to leave, and I got a feeling it's probably not going to be Lev Bell. You like tight ends early? You're going to have to take Travis Kelce in the first round.
I mean, again, I don't really like doing it, but I'm not going to argue with Kelce, Ertz, and Kittle. To me, are head and shoulders above everybody else. And that includes Evan Ingram, who we just talked about, who I think is the 4th best. I don't really like to reach for him unless you're playing in some kind of, like the Scott Fish Bowl, where the tight ends have a significant boost that gives those guys, even more value than that. I've still been waiting and trying to grab somebody 7th, 8th, 9th round, something like that. But I'm not going to argue with anybody who goes Kelce, Ertz in the 2nd round, or even Kittle in the 3rd round. Those are probably where those 3 guys should be going. I don't like building my team that way, but I understand people who do.
And I did build a team like that last night, Benny. I caught Kelce in the 2nd. The only time this weekend I saw him in the 2nd, and I ended up grabbing him. I'll tell you how the team worked out in a few moments. Another player that is rising up draft boards right now, inching closer and closer to the first round, is Dalvin Cook. Just the talent is just, like I said, Benny, once you get closer to once you get closer to Labor Day, there's no more mistakes on that draft board. What do you think about Cook inching up to that first round?
Yeah, I mean, I took Cook in the 2nd round towards the end. Like, I think I went, was it Kamara or McCaffrey? I took Kamara or McCaffrey in the 1st round of one of my drafts, and Cook was there at like 20 on the way back.
That's wonderful.
So that was how I started that draft. I loved it, and the team that I built around it came out really nice, where I was pretty happy about it.
Again, and you get another good pick. So you almost have like 3 of the top 25 players on the board. Well,
that's actually what happened. Is coming back around, I wound up I took a wide receiver. I forget which one of them I took, but I think it might have been Keenan Allen. I think I took Keenan Allen on the way back right there. So I started the team off McCaffrey, Cook, Allen, and I was pretty happy with that. And like I said, the way the team eventually wound up coming together, I was pretty happy with it. I don't think you're going to see that too much more often going forward. So be happy if you were able to get it at this point. Because, I mean, listen, Dalvin Cook, before he got hurt, Corey, he was putting up some big numbers. If this guy stays healthy, he's a top 5 running back.
He was leading the league in rushing. And remind you, Ezekiel Elliott was in the league that year, too.
Yep.
That's was also Ezekiel Elliott's rookie season.
A 2nd year, because Cook missed his rookie year. Yeah, it was his first full season, but he missed his rookie year. He got hurt.
No. Wait a minute. It was the same year, 3 years ago, right?
Yeah, but Cook got hurt his rookie year, remember?
Yeah.
So the big year that he had where he was like, people were like, wow, was actually his 2nd season.
No, it wasn't. No. Last season was Cook's 2nd season.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So the beginning of the season when he was having a big year.
See, that first 5 games, he was leading the league in rushing. Yeah.
Yeah.
His first 5 games as a pro, he was leading the league in rushing. Then he had a non-contact injury, and one of my teams fell apart after that. Okay, Benny, this is the question of the day. You're on the clock mid-4th round.
Okay.
You need a wide receiver.
Okay.
Looking at Tyler Lockett and Tyler Boyd.
Ooh, I'm gonna go Lockett. Basically, what I'm thinking is that Lockett's gonna take the Baldwin volume.
Yeah.
Because you look at the rest of that receiving core is nothing special. I mean, I told people at the beginning, if you wasted a draft pick on DJ Metcalf, you deserve everything that you get for it.
Benny even changed his name to DJ Metcalf. It's DK Metcalf, but it might as well be DJ Metcalf.
I say DJ, I meant DK, but whatever. Either way, it doesn't matter.
You're right. It doesn't matter. Yep.
Yeah, it doesn't matter because you're not going to get much production out of him. Tyler Lockett is the piece of that passing game that you really want to go with Russell Wilson. I actually kind of like it because I think that his volume is going to go up, and he already had a bunch of big plays last year and a pretty good season last year getting in the end zone. The biggest problem I've always had with using Russell Wilson in DFS is I used to play him naked all the time, like meaning without one of his wide receivers linked together with him. A lot of times you try to handcuff that when you're building daily lineups. I used to play him without any of his wide receivers because he used to spread the ball around to so many people. You would get a lot of catches from Baldwin. You would get touchdown passes to Lockett. Who was the other guy that had last year? Moore, I think, on the outside. He used to catch some touchdown passes for him, David Moore. So when you look at this team this year, you got to make up for all those targets that went to Baldwin somewhere. To me, Lockett's the only guy that can do it.
I agree. Listen, both players similar in talent. Both players similar in opportunities coming into the season. Andy Dalton is not nowhere near similar to Russell Wilson, and that's just the skinny of it right there.
Now, is Boyd moving up into the 4th round now after this AJ Green news? Is that where he's been going this weekend?
Into the 4th round.
I mean, I like Boyd, but I don't know if I want to take him in the 4th round. Like, who is he going? Who else is going around there? Like 4th round to me is like what, like Diggs, Thielen, guys like that still, or?
Let's see.
The other one I want to ask you about, because I know you were doing a lot of drafts this weekend, where's Tyreek Hill going now that all that stuff is gone? Because you can't look at his ADP. The problem with ADP is it doesn't take into account things that happen. So, like, if you can look at ADP from, like, the last week, it's going to be way different than the ADP for the last 2 months for certain guys that we're talking about here. Tyreek Hills, Austin Eckler's, guys that have had a reason for, Tyler Boyd's, that you've had a reason to move up the board.
No. Boyd last night went in the 5th.
I'm good with that. That's where I think he should be.
Right on the 4-5 turn.
Okay, so he's moving up to the top of the 5th. He used to be back end of the 5th or the 6th. Now he's front end of the 5th or the end of the 4th.
The wide receivers drafted in front of him were Tyler Lockett and Mike Williams.
And who was behind them?
I would draft Tyler Boyd over Mike Williams.
Without a doubt. To me, that doesn't make any sense. Was it Vlad? Because I know Vlad loves Mike Williams this year.
I don't believe Vlad's in this draft.
Okay.
Another player that went ahead of him, Chris Godwin. I would draft Tyler Boyd over Chris Godwin.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest Godwin fan. He's still a wide receiver too. You know what I'm saying? He's still the wide receiver too over there. He's not the number 1 guy.
Boyd or DJ Moore?
I would go Boyd. I trust Boyd more than I trust Moore.
The wide receiver I named were all drafted in the 4th round. Boyd or Robert Woods?
Woods.
That's where I think it stops right there. I agree. Right there is where it stops. And Woods was the 2nd wide receiver in round number 4. So I think the ADP is going to rise to 4 unless we continue to overvalue Godwin.
A lot of people are overvaluing God, or maybe they're not. I mean, maybe I'm the one who's wrong on this, but
could be wrong. But I think his ADP is too high.
Yeah, I think so too. And here's the thing, Corey. I like to try to get guys that I think are being undervalued, right? Like Godwin, it's not that I don't think Godwin's going to step forward and have a good year like a lot of people do. I don't want to pay the price that everybody else is willing to pay for him. If I was still getting him,
go ahead.
Yeah, if I was still getting him in 6th or 7th round, by all means, I would be all over Godwin as a 6th or 7th round pick. Godwin as a 4th round pick, though, I think you've taken all the upside out of him. His best case scenario is he pays off that 4th round pick. but there's probably at least a 50-50 chance that he doesn't get to that best case scenario, and then you overpaid for the guy. And that's my problem is I'll wait 2 rounds and draft Calvin Ridley, who could have the same type season, but I'm getting him at, a discounted price or a discounted value.
All right. So I'm going to say a phrase for you that you've probably heard before, and it fits right into Chris Godwin. You're buying all the risk.
Yes, 100%. That's exactly what I'm saying is you need him to hit close to his ceiling to justify taking him in round 4.
You're buying all the risk when you take him.
Whereas, 50-60% of the probable outcomes for him make a 4th round pick way too much of a reach.
All right. FantasyGuru.com, draft guide out now. All of this type of stuff and plenty more to get you ready for 2019 in that draft guide. And not only is it a draft guide, but it takes you through the entire season, articles, podcasts, live streams, chats, the whole deal. So FantasyGuru.com is lit for 2019. All right, so here we go. Benny, I tell you this draft right quick before we get to some baseball talk. Had the 5th pick, which is about the worst pick in the draft because you're sitting right outside of the top 4 running backs.
Yep.
I didn't want to go left bell here, and I damn sure wasn't taking David Johnson, so I went and I didn't. Like I said, I'm already in my diversifying roster mode. I've already got a ton of Odell and probably going to have some more over the course of the next couple of weeks. So right here in 1-1, Benny, I took D-Hop. No problem to see here. I came back at 2 in the 2nd round, which I believe is 2-7, Benny, and I took Travis Kelce.
So you started off D-Hop and Kelce?
Yep.
Okay. I mean, again, I have no problem with that. So how did it go from there?
All right, so this is where now I'm in it now, Benny. Now I'm like, okay, I'm in it now. Now I don't have no running backs. All of the good ones are just about going. I got to figure it out. Round 3, I avoided running back again, and I took Amari Cooper.
Now, I want to talk about this real quick because this is something that I think people need to understand when they're drafting. If you decide to go, not saying that you're going to do a 0 RB theory completely, but if you decide to go with tight end, wide receiver in your first 2 picks,
go for it.
Go for it. What you want to do at this point is you want to have the best set of wide receivers and tight ends in the league, and then hope that you can hit on a later round running back or get an injury handcuff or something like that. That you want to try to get the James Connors and the Phillip Lindsays of the world from last season. The guys that wound up being top 10 running backs, but that you could have drafted later in the rounds. If you start, it's the same thing as in baseball. If you start in baseball and you go and you take Scherzer in the 1st round, and then you go in the 2nd round and you take another stud pitcher, if you're going to go pitching heavy, go pitching heavy. Don't chicken out in the 3rd round and then start grabbing running backs because your team winds up looking like shit. If you're going to build with wide receiver, tight end, build with wide receiver, tight end. Like you stuck to your guns, and I like that. And I think more people need to do that.
Here's the thing, though, Benny. That was my plan until I got to the 4th round and Marlon Mack was there.
But that's fine. I have no problem doing that, though, because now you have 2 top-end wide receivers with Amari Cooper and D-Hop. You got the best tight end in the game, so you got an advantage there. Marlon Mack is one of those kind of guys. What I usually do is when I decide I'm going to go, not complete. I don't like the whole idea of completely 0 RB. Like, people talk about the complete 0 RB. I don't want 5 or 6 running backs in rounds 6 through 11. Because at that point, you're basically just rolling the dice. You still want to grab some running backs so you have something. But, yeah, you're probably going to be more wide receiver heavy early, running back heavy in the middle rounds, and then go back and take some more wide receivers just to kind of round out your depth later on in the draft. That's usually the way I try to go about doing it. So I like the fact that you stuck to your guns and kind of went with the wide receiver, tight end, wide receiver, gave yourself a lot of strength in the passing game. And then, like you said, now you got to figure out running back. That's the tough
part. In the 5th round, I gave myself even more strength in the passing game, but not via a wide receiver, via a quarterback, because I took Deshaun Watson. Breaking one of my rules. Do not draft quarterbacks and tight ends close together, especially in the first 5 rounds. But I feel as if I'm a strong enough drafter to where I can pull it off. If you're a novice, I wouldn't recommend it for you because it might come out looking like shit. You know what I'm saying?
No, it very likely will. Like, that's the thing. You're gonna again though. This is what we're just trying to do here. We're trying to help people out, so we want to explain why this is a bad idea. If you draft a tight end and a quarterback in the early round, so like you said, this is what, round 5,
Yep.
and you got a tight end and a quarterback already. Most other teams that are built right now have 2 running backs and 3 wide receivers, or 3 running backs and 2 wide receivers. So now you're winding up taking second-tier and third-tier wide receivers and second-tier and third-tier running backs to go along with those guys. And that's always tough to do, especially when you can get, people that play like quarterback in rounds. I mean, again, is this a one quarterback league, Corey, or a flex thing?
One quarterback league, Benny.
One quarterback league in round 20, 15, 18, you can still get like the Tom Brady's of the world and the Matthew Staffords of the world, who are solid quarterbacks that aren't going to be that far behind a Deshaun Watson. But like you said, if you can hit on some of those second and third tier wide receivers and running backs, you could also put together a bomb squad by having a Mahomes or a Watson and a Kelsey or an Ertz together.
And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to put together that bomb squad. We know that running back is going to be an issue with the team. So I went ahead. This is where I went on my 5 running back run.
Yep.
5 straight running backs. Tevin Coleman.
I like.
Austin Eckler.
I love Austin Eckler.
Miles Sanders.
Okay, I'm not a huge fan, but I get it. A lot of people like him a lot more than I do.
I'm playing the long game with Miles Sanders.
Yeah, by week 7 or 8, he's probably going to be the main back.
He's going to be Marlon Mack and Miles Sanders. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Naheem Himes.
Okay.
And Jerick McKinnon.
I like it. Dude, McKinnon, I think people are sleeping on. I like. What round did you get him in?
The McKinnon, this is round, let me pull the board over here.
Like 9?
Round 10 for McKinnon.
I like that. That's a round where I've been getting him too. Listen, McKinnon is one of those guys that has a lot of upside. That San Francisco running back situation is going to be one to watch.
Coleman and McKinnon.
Yeah, that's why I think it's good, because my biggest fear with that, I think Coleman has the inside track on being the starter.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? At least early on in the season. But if either him or McKinnon get hurt, I think that boosts the other one up. Now, remember, they still have Matt Breida, too, who's not a bad running back either. He had a pretty decent season last year. There's going to be a lot of production coming out of that backfield. Early in the season, my biggest fear is it might get spread out a little bit. But at some point, you got a whole bunch of guys with injury histories there. At some point, one of them goes down or 2 of them go down. If that ever gets to a point where one guy is getting 70% of the snaps, whoever that one guy is going to be a steal for fantasy.
Yeah, because he's in Kyle Shanahan's very running back friendly system. So there you go right there. So that's the 5 running backs. So I feel like, okay, we're going to figure it out at running back. Now I got to get that 3rd wide receiver. Once again, the board miraculously, because the wide receivers were thinning out. Not to say that this is a great pick by any stretch of the imagination, but for that 3rd wide receiver to go with Hopkins and Amari Cooper, I got Deshaun Hamilton.
Now, what round are we talking? 11?
11.
Now, he was your favorite of the Denver wide receivers, right?
Yes, he is the one that's going to be in the slot.
Yeah, I prefer Sutton to Hamilton this year as a Denver wide receiver, but in round 11, I have no problem with that.
Now, this is the other options I was looking at as the 3rd wide. This is N'Keal Harry was never on my board.
No, and he's honestly N'Keal Harry is not even starting right now. I forget the guy's name.
I can tell people all the time, Benny, tell me the Patriot wide receiver that they've developed.
Yeah. Oh, what the hell was the guy's name? I was reading something over the weekend where Harry's actually running with the 2nd unit.
Yeah.
To start the season. And the name of the guy who was running with the 1st unit, I don't even remember. I'll look it up. We'll talk. We're here every day this week. So come back tomorrow and I'll have it by tomorrow. But I remember reading it on Roto World this weekend that the Patriots, the guys that were working out with the ones for the Patriots were not who you would expect, and N'Keal Harry was not one of those guys.
So it wasn't going to be Harry. It wasn't going to be DK Metcalf. I took Hamilton in front of Michael Gallup. I think Michael Gallup can have an interesting season. A lot of it depends on Dak Prescott. I took Hamilton over Gallup, Zay Jones, John Brown, Paris Campbell, Devontae Parker. Cortland Sutton had already been off the board.
The only guy on that list that I'm interested in really is John Brown.
Okay.
John Brown apparently has been running with the ones, with Zay Jones kind of being on the back burner.
Yeah.
So that to me is a little bit interesting. Again, we'll see how it all works out and how it all plays out. But the fact that he has speed, who's the other guy that they had there? Foster? Foster is apparently not – yeah, he's apparently not a thing this year. And there were people that were overdrafting him as well. John Brown, though, has that same skill set and is probably a more talented wide receiver. So I'm thinking if you like Foster, you got to really like John Brown, especially now that we know he's the guy that's been running.
There you go. Later on in this draft, in round 12, now mind you, I have Deshaun Watson on this team, but in round 12 is at quarterback 17, Lamar Jackson.
Again,
it's not like I can, like, more than likely, I'm going to start Watson over Jackson, but guess what? Nobody else in this league is going to start Lamar Jackson either.
Like I said, I'm a DFS guy. Maybe – I don't know. I even think he has a higher – not only do I think he has a higher floor because of the rushing yard, I think he has a higher ceiling because of the rushing yards.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
People are talking about – smart football people are saying that the Baltimore Ravens are going to do something different on offense this year.
What are they going to do different? Are they going to pass?
No, they're that this offense is going to be like something that we've never seen before. Like with the players that they have, Lamar Jackson, Justice Hill, Hollywood Brown. It's just like they're really going to expand and make this thing very hard to guard.
Yeah, well, the question really becomes, Corey, is for fantasy purposes, does it help or hurt what Jackson did last year? And to me, it's only going to enhance what he's doing. When you put – I mean, just look at the Kansas City Chiefs. The idea is they're trying to be like the Chiefs. Put speed and, like, world-class speed at every position on the field, and it makes it tough for a defense because now guys got to stay home. They're worried about reverses. They're going to bite on every fake because if you don't bite on the fake –
80 yards here.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's only going to make it easier for the quarterback. One thing we've always said about running games, one of the best friends of a running game is a running quarterback because you wind up having linebackers that are now playing with their feet in sand because they don't know whether to go for a fake or not to go for a fake. And that extra half second of them being indecisive is enough for these – it's enough for these guys with world-class speed to get over the edge. And that's – you got world-class speed everywhere. It's tough for a defense to guard it all.
Receivers also on this team after Hamilton, your man Debo, my guy Cole Beasley, and Marquise Goodwin. So that's how I rounded it up. The Dallas Cowboy defense, and then a little bit, and then Greg Olson in round 20. And that's how that one went down there right there, Benny. I thought it worked out pretty good.
Yeah, I like it, man. I'm telling you, Debo Samuel's, I want to be on the record as saying this, is I think people are sleeping on him. I'm not usually a big fan of rookie wide receivers, but to me, he's as good, if not better, than Dante Pettis. Yeah. And people are taking Pettis 6-7 rounds ahead of where Debo's been going.
Oh, yeah. No, he really is. And I don't see why. And Marquise Goodwin was all the rage last year. It's just about going for a song this year. So there you go right there. All right, Benny. All right, one last football thing before we get some baseball news out the way and get up out of here. Theo Riddick. Any interest in him? If he's a Saint, where he visits the Saints today, I think Tampa could be a fit. What do you think about Theo Riddick? Or is it just like, he's just like a guy, a piece?
Well, I would rather see him on Tampa because the position that he plays as the pass-catching back is Alvin Kamara's in New Orleans. So, I mean, really, how much work can you get there? Yeah. I did say over the weekend, though, I don't know if you saw this, Corey, but it's a good thing that black unemployment is so low right now because Theo Riddick's going to be able to find the job pretty quickly.
Thanks, Donald Trump.
That's a good thing, man. Yeah, we got to thank MAGA for that going on. But I actually think he works out well if you put him down in Tampa because I really don't know what Ronald Jones is. And anybody who says they know what Ronald Jones is lying to you because we haven't really seen much from him.
Free Rojo.
Yeah, but we do know what Peyton Barber is. And Peyton Barber
on in the 9th round of fantasy drafts.
Yeah, and Peyton Barber is not the guy that you really want to be your kind of third down scat back. He's more of the guy you want running the ball in the early downs. So I could see Theo Riddick fitting in there with a Peyton Barber if Ronald Jones isn't good. To me, he's got a better chance of being a guy that could play there. Another place that I think Theo Riddick would actually work out really well, and you could call me crazy here, is actually the New York Giants. Because with the Giants, you have a guy in Theo Riddick who actually has carried the ball a little bit in case something happens to Barkley or if you just want to kind of give him a break. And he's also been a guy who you can throw in the slot and actually have him run routes because he's a really good route runner as well, has really good hands for a running back. I think he was I think he was number 1 overall in production for running backs catching the ball out of the backfield last year. Not like, yards and all that, but like, when they do their PFF grades, I think he actually graded out as one of the highest, with his hands and his route running and all that stuff. So this is a guy that can help in a passing game. People are saying, oh, he's going to wind up on the Patriots. The problem is he's basically a James White, right? Like that's –
why would he be on the Patriots same role?
That's the same thing I said. And to me, that's also the problem with the Saints is, you're asking them to play the role that a James White and Alvin Kamara, that those guys already kind of play. But there are teams out there that don't have one of those guys that could definitely use them. Tampa Bay being one of them. And, there's probably a couple other ones in the league that we can think of. So I think Theo Riddick winds up on a team this year. I don't know if he's going to have much fantasy value, though.
Yeah. Let me see right quick. What do you think about Theo Riddick as a New York Jet?
I mean, I actually wouldn't mind it, but the thing is, I don't know, because we got new coaching in there. The Jets have been really high.
And guess who the new coach is?
What, Gase?
Jim Bob Cooter.
Oh, yeah, that's true, too. The Jets have always been high on Elijah Mcguire.
Okay.
And he's supposed to be back this year. Right now, I'm actually looking at Mcguire as like the backup for Le'Veon Bell. And he does some of those similar things because basically Elijah Mcguire was supposed to be like another Bilal Powell who, was a guy that the Jets had used with a little bit of frequency the last couple of years as well. I wouldn't hate it. I really wouldn't hate it if Riddick wound up there. But again, I don't think there's much value outside of some injuries really opening up something for him.
All right, Benny, break down. I'm going to run and grab my phone because somebody keep texting me. It might be important. What the hell did the Mets do yesterday?
Well, I'm glad you walked away here because I actually got a lot to say here. So, first off, the Mets traded 2 of their top minor league pitching prospects in order to bring in Marcus Stroman. Stroman is definitely a decent pitcher, definitely somebody who deserves to be on the team. I don't think – see, there's people that are talking about it from different ways. Here's my view of it. I don't think the Mets did this because they're trying to make a run for the playoffs. They're 6 games back. There are 6 teams in front of them. They're ranked 10th right now in the National League. 3 of the teams in their division are ahead of them.
The Mets are buyers now, Benny?
Yeah, but I don't think it was. And this is why I don't know if this is – basically, here's the idea, Corey. What the Mets wanted to do is they basically wanted to corner the market on starting pitchers available.
Okay.
Because before today, the top 3 starting pitchers available, before yesterday, I should say, were Marcus Stroman, Noah Syndergaard, and Zach Wheeler. Mm-hmm. Those are the 3 guys that are on the top of a lot of teams' lists. So what the Mets decided to do was basically like the 1920s and the gold rush and the silver rush and all that. They tried to corner the market. So they said, well, if we trade for Stroman now, and I don't think they got a bad deal for Stroman. I think they made a good deal.
They got a good deal.
Yeah, so I don't think it's crazy. So what they did is they said, all right, well, now we have the 3 pitchers that everybody wants. So if you want a pitcher to make your run down the stretch, one of these teams that's trying to make a push for the playoffs or something, you have to come to us. You have to talk to us. So now we can control the market because we have all the guys, and you can't play us. You can't play the Blue Jays against us to try to get better prospects out of us or to try to get a lesser deal for a Wheeler or a Syndergaard because we now have all 3 of the guys that everybody wants. So that's the thought process behind it. Whether or not it's going to work is a different question because what we already saw yesterday is teams that were in the Noah Syndergaard business or trying to get into the Noah Syndergaard business were saying, well, if those are the only 2 prospects you had to give up to get Stroman, we're not giving you the big-time prospects you want in order to get Noah Syndergaard because that would just be us overpaying.
Yeah.
So they might have actually shot themselves in the foot by trying to be too smart. The other thing I said to people, though, is trading Noah Syndergaard right now would be a disaster for this team because the guys that they would have had to bring in to let pitch, their new, 4th and 5th starters, would have been complete garbage. But now, if you trade Syndergaard and you could put Stroman in there, for the next 2 years because he's locked up for 2 more years, you at least have something that you can – Stroman is a very good pitcher. He's like a ground ball machine, completely different kind of pitcher than a lot of these other guys. He's not a big strikeout guy, but he is somebody that's pretty good. The other problem I have, though, Corey, the Mets have one of the worst defensive infields in the league. When you go and get a ground ball pitcher, like normally you go get a ground ball pitcher because you got a really good infield, and you're saying, well, hell, if this guy's just going to keep throwing ground balls and getting guys that have weak swings, our infield can take care of those and turn those into outs, and it's going to be good. When you have a crappy defensive infield, though, those all might not be turning into outs for him. So it might not be the best situation. I will say this. Basically what they did, people are like, the Mets are buyers. The Mets are not buyers. All right? Like, if you really think the Mets have a chance to make it to the playoffs, I got a good bridge in Brooklyn that I can sell you, and I'll give it to you real cheap because I don't think there's any chance that happens.
Yeah.
But what I will say is it makes it easier now for them to turn around and flip a Syndergaard for prospects or flip a Wheeler for prospects because now they can let those prospects develop slowly. They don't need major league ready talent.
Yeah.
They can take guys that are AAA. The problem, though, is I'm hearing that they're trying to flip Syndergaard for major league ready talent. And it doesn't make sense to me to make a run right now when you're really not making a run anywhere. They're not beating the Dodgers this year. They probably aren't even – I mean, honestly, they would need a lot of things to break their way to make the playoffs. Like, they would have to have –
They would have to be the miracle Mets, or the amazing Mets. Whatever it's got to be some holy shit, the Mets. So it's no, you know what I'm saying?
They would have to win like 70% of their last 50 games or something, and they would still need 4 of the 5 teams in front of them to have crappy ends to the season. It's just when you do the math on it, you're talking about like a 2% chance of them making the playoffs, and even then, I wouldn't put any money on it.
All right, cool. I want to talk about this right here before we get out of here, Benny. Give me some baseball picks. My charger, not my charger, my mouse battery is dying.
Oh.
So it's like we may have to keep talking. You know what I'm saying?
We can't end this thing. We just gotta wait till your computer dies on it.
But right now, Benny, I think if you give me a couple things, a couple baseball plays right now, we can get a big piece of chicken. I can give a special shout out to someone, and then we can get out of here.
All right, so my favorite play for the day here is probably going to be the Angels team total over.
Okay.
I wanted to take the total in the game because I don't really like Jaime Barria either. But really, the Detroit offense is just so bad that, like, I can't count on them to even put up 2 or 3 runs and carry their weight. So for me, I'm just going to stay to the Angels side. Jordan Zimmerman is one of the worst pitchers in the game right now. This is a guy who has over a 7 ERA. Even his xFIP is well over 5, so it's not even like, he just had a bad game or, the numbers will regress. Like, the numbers may regress a little, but they're still going to regress to a part where they're bad. Like, So I love the Angels bats today. Mike Trout is my number 1 home run call on the day. Haven't looked at the home run props. I didn't have them up early this morning on DraftKings yet. But if I can get plus 300 or better on on the home run prop for Trout, I'm definitely going to take that. I think Ohtani has a good chance to go yard too. Both of those guys are just so elite against right-handed pitching. And like I said, Jordan Zimmerman is just garbage. Worse than league average to righties, to lefties. Like, there's not a bat that doesn't profile well against him. So that's my favorite bet for the day. For anybody playing fantasy today, you really want to have a piece of the Dodgers and Colorado Rockies game. Yeah. The total in that game is like 13. Every other total on the day is like 10 or less. So, I mean, again, like, I like John Gray. He's a pretty good pitcher. Kenta Maeda, another guy who has had his ups and downs this year, but normally a pretty good pitcher. But Coors Field has just been playing like, it's like a video game lately. It's like putting a video game on easy mode whenever there's a game in Coors. Balls are just carrying there. You're getting more home runs. You're getting a lot of those things that hit the gap, and you wind up with doubles and triples. There's going to be a lot of offensive production in that game today. So, I saw it come down to 12.5, and I think that's a mistake. Like, I'm still looking at the over in this game. I hope it comes down to 12 because I'll feel even better about it if it does. And then maybe one of the craziest things I'm going to say today, one of my favorite bets today is actually the Royals. Okay. I like the kid Keller who's pitching for the Royals. I don't think he's a stud, but he's like a ground ball machine, kind of along the lines of like a Stroman. He's a guy that doesn't get lit up. And I do think the Royals are in a really good spot to score some runs because the guy who's pitching for Toronto, Tommy Pannone, is also one of the worst pitchers in the league. He's a guy with an ERA over 6, a high xFIP. He's very tough on left-handed bats, being a lefty, but right-handed bats are absolutely teeing off on him this year. So I like the Royals. And the thing is, we talked about this last week. when you get to the end of a baseball season, which is really where we're at. I mean, we're about 2 months left in baseball season right now. You're not going to get a lot of good value. Like you look at some of the games today that, games that I like, minus 240, minus 180, minus 190. I don't want to take minus 190 because, I mean, you're basically betting, you bet $200 to win like $90. Like, I don't want to lay that out. The reason I like the Royals today, they're at like a minus 125. So that's still a good bet. You bet 200, you win 160. That's worth the risk to me, especially when I think that they're very likely to win that game. So to me, one of the best value plays you can make today is betting on the Royals. I really like them at like a minus 120. Probably go all the way up to like minus 135 on the Royals. I'd still be interested.
There you go right there. Go ahead, Benny, big piece of chicken.
So my big piece of chicken, like I said, I kind of gave it away in the opening, but I'm giving it to Mad Lab today because his UFC analysis this weekend, his MMA analysis all year long really has been on point. But he absolutely crushed that card on Saturday. And anybody who was like me and following along, I mean, Corey, I'm not even kidding. I probably pocketed $800 or $900 worth of profit, and that's after paying for, the $60 for the pay-per-view over there, and for all the liquor and beer and pizza that me and a couple of my buddies were drinking while we were watching it. So shout out to Mad Lab for a good Saturday night and a couple $100 to help me pay some bills this week.
All right, there we go. We got the Raz Bowl get started today, the Raz Bowl Experts League. So you'll probably see some of those tweets going out, bring some updates on that for tomorrow. Don't really have a big piece of chicken, but I do want to – I know we gave condolences to Mad Lab and his grandmother earlier, but I just found this out late last night and just got some messages about it again. One of the Jesus Christ, it's terrible. Our boy Rob Tuesday, assistant program director at Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, his wife passed away last night. And she just gave birth 2 days ago. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, that's the worst.
Yes, they have 2 young daughters now, both under the age of 5, and he doesn't have a wife. So you know what I'm saying? Somebody I work with every day for many years. So condolences to Rob Tuesday and his family. And there you go right there. For my main man, Benny, I'm Corey Parson, the fantasy executive. We are out.